we are streaming. I'll just get Geshe to speak a little.
Yeah, congratulations.
So Śāntideva from Geshe, can everyone hear? All right, so let's get the session started. Thank you, everybody, both in person and at home, for sharing this day of Saga Dawa with us. Okay. So first of all, to those who are at home, to those who are here with us, Geshe thanks you very much, and he wishes you Śāntideva on this auspicious occasion of Saga. Emily, go take a seat. Go sit. Be comfortable, everybody. There's lots of room. So welcome and Śāntideva on this auspicious occasion of Saga Dawa. So in terms of the various Buddhist festivals or holidays, there are various ones, but we could say that this occasion of the full moon day of Saga Dawa is the one that is the most precious. There is no occasion that is more precious than this. And this is because this marks the day that our teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, was born into the world, the day that he manifested Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, or complete enlightenment, and the day that he passed away into Paranirvana. So if we take today mindfully and we engage our body, speech, and mind with what is wholesome, what is virtuous, this is very excellent, because on this precious day it is said that those virtues are magnified by up to millions of times. And so then one of the reasons that we celebrate occasions like this is to help us to be mindful of the qualities of the Buddha. And when we speak of the qualities of the Buddha, we can speak of the qualities of his holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. And it is particularly the activities of his holy mind that are the most important. And recollecting those qualities, we want to try to exemplify, to develop those qualities ourselves as well. So then if we look at the works of important scholars such as Arya Nagarjuna, we see that in his important works, when he praises the Buddha, the most extensive praises are the praises to his qualities of a holy mind. And when we pay homage and recollect those, it is very powerful. So one of these verses from Nagarjuna is quoted by His Holiness the Dalai Lama on many different occasions, recognizing him as the one who established the correct view, who dispelled all of the wrong views, and on that basis I offer prostration to this Gautama. So this is one of the very famous passages from Nagarjuna's works. So if we look at the progression of Buddha Shakyamuni, as he was a bodhisattva, an ordinary bodhisattva traveling on the path, it was on the basis of arising great compassion within his mind that he truly began to develop. So it is because of arising this great compassion, which is said in the scriptures to be important in the beginning, important in the middle, and important in the end, that after achieving his enlightenment, Buddha Shakyamuni did not rest, he did not remain in seclusion, but instead he put tremendous effort into turning the wheel of the holy Dharma.
연다 고나에 제와 마진에 제와니지 전부 주주를 제와진의 줄라가 뭐요.
And it was recognizing the importance of the arising of great compassion as contributing to the Buddha's enlightenment that great scholars such as Chandrakirti in his text the Mahāyāna, the entering the middle way, it is this reason that he says, I praise compassion in the beginning, I praise compassion in the middle, and I praise compassion in the end.
어다 제와니지 전부데 투마 바와 타마 토다 바선데 가디 이나요 조코렌드 선다게 되제네 아니 좋아자요.
So it was an offer of prostration, of homage to the Buddha, recognizing that it was his development of great compassion at the beginning, the middle, and the end, which makes him a being worthy of homage.
대소이 어다 드리지 예상으로 소이나 건디고 어느 소지가 디셰 Saga Dawa ngoche bikal zo tandijin ngoche kenduas.
And so it is for this reason then that His Holiness the Dalai Lama on occasions such as Saga Dawa that he emphasizes this point.
어다 ngaro soina ta trini joten gochune tene zo ta chewaje shira chewaje ni te ta poge sel kaze tata ta yar to ya tenga so lek zo teres.
And so then on the basis of this introduction, hopefully we understand that our task, recollecting on holy days such as this, is to engage with the practices of method, to engage with the practices of wisdom, and to try to bring them to perfection in our own mind.
손지 코롤 tani 그 토바 누지 끝니데 로데 치크 tomba 예데 주크 tomba 생가로서 다 도자
And it is through our engagement with the practices of method and wisdom that we can bring forth the results that we seek. And these are the two bodies of a Buddha, the form body or the Rupakaya through which the welfare of others is achieved, and the truth body or Dharmakaya through which one's own welfare is achieved.
예데 주크 tomba 다 도자 조데 대용하라로 데 치크 tomba 데 마토는 용금 매아이사 다 녀도
So out of these two, right, it is the Rupakaya or the form body which is the main one, because it is through that form body that the Buddhas can engage with sentient beings and achieve their welfare. However, in order to actualize the Rupakaya, we first need to achieve our own welfare through actualizing the Dharmakaya or truth body. And so understanding that out of these two, the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya, that it is the Rupakaya which is the main object of attainment because it contributes to the welfare of others. For this reason, we exert ourselves in the method practices of the path. And then when we speak of developing wisdom, this development of extraordinary wisdom is the primary or substantial cause of the Dharmakaya, the truth body, through which our own welfare is achieved. And the thing about the method side of the path is even just now as a beginner, from the moment that we engage in it, we will already be able to experience a greater degree of happiness in our mind. So based upon engaging with those method practices from day to day, we experience greater mental peace and happiness. We establish the causes for lifetime to lifetime, our future destinies being happy. But if we want to achieve that state of lasting happiness, that state where the happiness is brought to its perfection, this is only possible if the method practices are infused by the practices of wisdom. And when we speak about dispelling obstacles and hindrances, right, we speak about many ways to do that. But ultimately, if one understands wisdom, it is through the development of wisdom that hindrances and obstacles are dispelled most effectively. The other side of the coin is, of course, if we engage in wisdom and draw closer to achieving the Dharmakaya, that only takes care of our own welfare. If we do not infuse it with the method practices, we will not be able to bring forth the Rupakaya, the form body, to benefit others.
Oye, 다 못 왔더니 다 돼지간거 같이
So Geshe said maybe too much of a long-winded introduction, but anyways, the method and wisdom practices are very important.
저기 왔어. 다 때려 가서 드리나요. 다 쪼쪼대 다 보게 세계 예대가 논에 다 쪼쪼와 이제 되기사 이제가 파바시레지레.
So then when we speak about the developing our positive mental qualities and how important compassion is as part of that, then we understand that the deity embodiment of compassion is Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezi.
다 디기 때봤더니 가서 다 드릴 디지하래. 다 될 때와 피와 때 제바도 때와 피와이나 자와니지 첨벌 제바도 때와 대에는 손지 요졸 제바도 때와
So then when we praise Arya Avalokiteshvara in the context of this prayer, which Geshe will transmit today, the Bhakta, we are praising him specifically as the embodiment of great compassion. But when we praise the compassion of Avalokiteshvara, we are praising the qualities of compassion of all of the enlightened beings. So in this way, we could say that this Bhakta prayer is also a praise to all of the Buddhas, to their qualities of compassion. So I will, just for the folks who are here, I will pass these out if you would like to join in. And Geshe also says, don't be afraid for the folks who are here to shift your position to somewhere more comfortable. We want everyone to be comfortable. So we will begin with the prayer to Shakyamuni Buddha on the first page. Shabsudemba Dewar Sheba Jiden Gemba Kebuduwe Kalo Gyurwa Lana Meba Ladamin Hangi Temba Sangye Chomdende Jawa Shakya Tubala Chazelo Chede Kyabzu Chiho Temba Chomdende Dejin Sheba Jachomba Yandaba Zobe Sangye Jeba Dang Shabsu Demba Dewa Sheba Jiden Jemba Chebu Dewe Kalo Jurwa Lana Meba Ladam Minamgi Temba Sangye Chomdende Bejawa Shakya Tubala Chazelo Chede Kyabsu Chiho Temba Chomdende Dejin Sheba Drachomba Yandaba Zobe Sangye Jeba Dang Shabsu Demba Dewa Sheba Jiden Chemba Chebu Dewe Kalo Jurwa Lana Meba Ladam Minamgi Temba Sangye Chomdende Bejawa Shakya Tubala Chazelo Chede Kyabsu Chiho. And on 22, we'll do the short mandala and the taking refuge in bodhicitta. Soji bu juji medo jari ra linji ni de gemba di sangye jindo me de bowagi jogu nanda jin la je ba sho idam guru ratna mendala kan niryadayami. And lo jogoro. So Geshe would like to recite a prayer. Yore. Geshe would like to recite the prayer that speaks about the qualities of the Buddha. So we'll actually go back to the first page, and where you see the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, we'll start at the verse just after that to commemorate this occasion, the one that says, "When supreme amongst humans you were born on this earth." Ganze gani so gedanze sachen de la gomba dumbo ne ngani jiten dina choshe sun de tse geba gela cha salo nanda kunga chodu zanga yeshe jamso segi lumbo ja jaba jiten sumna lamewa gombo chinye gela cha salo zensho demba jime dawe Sedo Jawa Kira Cha Salo Duje Kira Suba Sumachi Nyame Kenshin Kira Cha Salo Gombo Duje Chedemba Tamche Kembe Tumba Bo Senam Yenden Jazujin Dejin Kira Cha Salo Dabe Desha Jawa Gyo Gewe Ngensong Lejuchin Chidu Dendon Chuchu Ba Shigyo Chela Cha Zalo Jene Jewe Lam Yangde Laba Dala Rabdune Shingi Damba Yenden Den Gendu Layang Cha Zalo Diba Chia Michaji Gewa Bunsun Soba Che Rangi Semni Yongsu Du Dini Sangi Demba Yin Kama Rare Mame Dang Gyuma Zumba Chubu Dang Milam Lodan Jindabu Duje Chenan Di Dada Senan Di Tamshe Zibayi Gobang Dubni Kengi Jadu De Gada Nadan Chiwe La Jube Sibe Tsule Jowa Sho. So now the refuge and bodhicitta on 23. Right. So this prostration in three parts, which is the one that follows the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, Geshe said that ideally whenever you are doing like verbal recitations of commitments and something, this is a prayer that you would recite first. You would begin with this prayer. And so this particular prayer, Geshe says, in this kind of expression is connected with the Bodhisattva path, but those who follow the path of the Shravakas, what we would call the Theravadins in the modern day, they have a similar one. But but Geshe said that this prayer, because of the way that it praises the qualities, this could be recited by anyone. So it's called the common prostration in three parts because there are kind of three key elements of this prayer. Right, so the first is the general prostration to the Buddha. Right. And so then the second part are verses of sutra. And Geshe is pointing your attention to two verses in particular. The one on page 7 that begins, "Do not commit any unwholesome actions." And the one following that, "A star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame." So these are from the sutras themselves. And then the third is the dedication of the merits, which is the final verse of the prayer. So when we talk about the prostration in three parts of this prayer, we can talk about these three elements, which is the prostrations or praises to the Buddha, the quotations from the sutras themselves, and finally that dedication of merit. So Geshe said that if you see different outlines which say that one verse is a meditation on impermanence, for example, that would also not be incorrect. There are different commentaries. But he thinks that his that he gave here is the more common one. Right. And so the gyun chak, so chak is prostration. Gyun is kind of, I was thinking it was, but Geshe said it's continuous in this context. So Geshe said in this case it is prostrations that are unbroken. Gyun karechene, kare macheba. And so we need to offer prostration or homage to these qualities until our own enlightenment. So that is why there is that word gyun or continuous there. So now refuge and bodhicitta.
Sanje chedan soge chenam lai jangje badu dani jabzu ji dagi chenyen gibe senange jola penjir sange joba sho chedan soge chenam lai jangje badu dani jabzu ji dagi chenyen gibe senange jola penjir sange joba Chedan sogi chenam la janche badu dani jabzu ji dagi chenyen jibe sunange jola penjir sange joba.
And if you guys don't want to hold on to your booklets, you can pass them up here. I'll keep them here for everybody. Yeah, there you good? Okay, all right. Let's again. So just place the mind in a relaxed state.
So
what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment to develop our motivation. We talk about the activities at the beginning and the end. So the activities at the beginning, middle, and end are very important. The first of these is the motivation. So we are going to take a moment to set that. Ale. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set a wholesome or a virtuous mind, and this is known as the door to meditation, and this comes from the teachings of many masters. But for example, if we think of Lama Tsongkhapa, he mentioned that setting the motivation at the session is very important. And it is also advised that before we try to bring forth that motivation in the mind, that we take a moment to observe our mind and see kind of what state our mind is in, for lack of a better word. And even if we look into our mind and we think that the state is relatively virtuous, we want to go deeper and see, for example, if it is tainted by the 8 worldly dharmas, which is definitely possible because of our self-centered attitude. And if we notice that there is something tainted by those 8 worldly dharmas, we just want to take a moment to sort of set that aside. But let us say that we look into our mind and we see that it is an unwholesome or a negative state that is predominant. We can't just place a virtuous object on top of that, right? That's not going to work for meditation. And even if we say that our mind is in maybe a neutral or a slightly distracted state, we want to try to bring it towards that wholesomeness. And so what we do is, for example, we could recollect the qualities of the holy dharma. So if you are ready to set the motivation right away, you don't need to do the preliminary meditation such as the mindfulness of the breath and so forth. You can just go right into the session.
se mata nela tane yunjung peje to yares.
But if you are looking at the state of your mind and there is discontent, if there is suspicion, doubt, false projections, even an afflicted state, then before you begin the main meditation session, it's good to pacify the mind by an exercise, for example, of the 9-point breathing.
다 소소 실론에 용하지 다 놀로 차고 아니 시티 마도 문제나 하고서 지데 소소 되니 저거나 아니 뭐뭐녀다 차고지 대요나 콜론서 파스잖아 콜로르 책 말아 가시까지 때문에 뭔가 나오지 라바이나 그 반도이네 내려와요.
And this is to create the space for what is wholesome in our mind. So the example that Geshe said, which he's given many times before, but there's some new folks, so he'll give it again, is that if you go to a movie theater or like what they call a picture hall, movie theater, and every seat is full, and it's a movie you really want to watch, what is the smart thing to do? Well, you're going to say to somebody, oh, look what's happening over there. And if they are naive enough to get up and leave, you can take their seat. You can take their seat.
다 윤중가 다 돈여 윤중가 배제 또야 돼 저대래. 또다 돈래도 되지 야보도 갈갈이 와라was.
So of course when we speak about the 9-point breathing, it's kind of just to trick our mind into leaving space for what is virtuous. But of course, as we become accustomed to this breathing meditation, if we can join it with something like Tonglen, for example, it becomes more profound.
다시부터 다 패체 도버들이 들어가서 말해스. 아니 오다 모두 들으시 잡아요나 파도스 실내에서 중간지자 근데 저는 예시 짜지 다 대롱을 중간롱을 세 가제트다 temba도 세줘야레스.
So what the holy beings advise, especially if the mind is in a disturbed state, is to do the mindfulness awareness of the breath, which means that we exhale, hold, and inhale as like 3 parts, and we count to 21 of those as a way to pacify the mind. And of course, depending on the state of our mind, depending on how much time we have, we could either kind of extend or shorten that. So let us just take a moment to cultivate that mindfulness awareness of the breath. Cultivating this mindfulness, I bring the 4 elements into balance, and the mind touches a state of peace. When we still our mind in this way, whatever unwholesome or discursive thoughts are present, they're just like clouds, and we think that this gentle breeze of mindfulness reveals the sun, the clarity of our mind. In this cloudless sky, empty and vast, unobstructed, I can experience the warmth of the sun, the power of the mind. In this vastness of the sky-like mind, I am able to touch its qualities of clear and knowing. These qualities of the mind mean that it can perfectly cognize, perfectly develop knowledge of any object, any phenomena.
rung ye re rawa ta kumba la sopa karala tawa yinayo no nojin zhe ge sa deni me so me ta ka zhe to tumbachi.
Self, others, the qualities of the external environment, mountains, houses, and so forth. If we try to find some sort of self-existent, pinpointable essence, we will not be able to find it.
chomevi tsowa no tu chene desa me ban ra bochi yo kara yina yo tane zhe ju sa me bachi yo sombachi.
In this space of the mind with this knowledge, seeing that things have no pinpointable or self-existent essence, then many problems are dissipated.
Tumbati rongro soso gan doji shoni paza pal tawa yina ane dewa songji ge shi dewa jing ge shi nda was bendre ya yi sa ji paso tsuba ane shi che sha shi wala soba kare yina yo paso soba yo bachi.
Now we imagine that as we have meditated from this sphere of emptiness, we bring forth a beautiful pure land, like Sukhavati. The ground is made of precious substances like Vaidurya, blue sapphire. There are beautiful lakes, pools, trees, and so forth. Everything in this environment only gives rise to bliss within the mind.
jigan doja noka ti naja noka la senge chimbo jige ti rumbo chi yuju puzu tsuba pe ma to nyama dai ti puzu tsuba senje tinda ta sunji ma tin shi yo somba.
So imagine that in the center of this beautifully pure environment there is a throne made of precious substances held up by 8 snow lions. Upon this throne are cushions or discs of lotus, sun, and moon. And we invite our teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, to take his place upon this throne.
Sha yenji shu te la tane jachi she jiga ta lama jawa shomba to papa tome to lo yin la so ta jachi she jiga lama kangi ko ne yo bachi.
Yun, Ro?
Yeah.
Yun. And on the left side of Buddha Shakyamuni are all of the lamas of the lineage of profound view in particular. So we can think of Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti. Ale.
Jachi she jiga lama.
Sorry. On the left side, the lineage of vast conduct of Buddha Maitreya, surrounded by Arya Asanga and the other lamas of that lineage.
Lapa yuanje shuotela samota jiga lama jizenjo meyo aninge bola da pa de da ta pa ayande wala supatama.
So ye dang yin ji which is what?
Yeah.
Yun lausung tambo. Yeah. Lausung. So those are on the right side. Those are the lamas of vast conduct on the right side. I think Geshe said left twice, but anyway, so on the right side. And then on the left side are the lamas of the lineage of profound view. Arya Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Bhava Viveka, and so forth.
jaga shola tane nyole shala jipi lama sana amade ta yedo asu denji sala sopata yedo kanga kone yopachi.
And then behind Buddha Shakyamuni are the lamas of the lineage of blessed practice, so the Mahasiddhas and so forth, and the important yidams of the lineage. For example, the three of Guhya Samaja, Vajrabhairava, and Chakrasamvara. And if you have a yidam deity that is in addition to those three, you can visualize that yidam deity there as well.
And
then you can imagine that seated in front of Shakyamuni Buddha is your own root guru, who has shown you the three kindnesses, and any other teachers who you are connected to in this life. In this way, the assembly of deities and gurus is very complete. So think, in this beautiful space in front of me are the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, together with all of the holy enlightened beings, the Buddhas and their children. And we imagine that on the level of the ground with us, gazing up towards the objects of refuge, starting with our father and mother, are all 6 types of sentient beings within samsara, possessing human form, but experiencing the difficulties of their particular realm. Alerted, they gaze up towards the objects of refuge with minds of faith and confidence. As they look up towards the objects of refuge, they place their faith, hopes, aspiration, confidence for protection completely within these objects of refuge, and they bring forth a mind of refuge, of complete confidence. We think that in terms of the confidence of what can help free me from all fear, in terms of having confidence of beings who can lead me to perfect happiness, I put all of my hopes. I seek no other refuge than you. And then think that having gone for refuge and appreciated the qualities of the Buddha as a basis, then, in order for me to be able to fulfill my wish to benefit all sentient beings, I must aspire to achieve the 3 kayas, the 3 bodies of a Buddha, bring forth the aspiration of bodhicitta.
tukane tat ngaros teda gombe tala tene ta to sugeze chaba baba no jipa otama ru so so ge ma shu so.
And imagine that having brought forth this positive motivation, the holy beings show the aspect of being pleased with us. Lights and nectars emanate from their hearts and fall on the assembly of all sentient beings like a heavy rain, completely purifying them of negativity.
Lise gange inare shewa thuma me bone sabe lenge did kandi chi ina ya pa ota chi jin da bunda ga to ma chpa ina kenyi te ba no ji ma te so.
And we can visualize that this rain very strongly fills their body and, like clear water, clearing a clogged pipe, cleans all of their negativities, obscurations, unwholesome latencies, and so forth, like unclean substances that leave through the lower parts of their body.
Di cheba che ten ro yu zu ta lise de pusu su pe ta chaba shi so ban.
Think in this way, all of the assembled sentient beings bring forth complete contentment, complete happiness of body and mind.
Ye de pusu su ba ji shu ya bo shu so ba chi ta di cheba che.
And then rejoice, thinking, I have been able to accomplish something for the benefit, for the welfare of others.
So yeah, it no
Geshe doubts he makes stuff right and left. He thinks it's my fault. It could be. I acknowledge that. Yeah. This side or this side, yes. That's Dave's also pointing out very charitably, I might add. It depends upon your perspective, whether you're sitting forward or facing the other way. Yeah. And so then Geshe said that this visualization then is going to connect with the ritual for receiving the Bodhisattva vows, where you'll repeat the verses after Geshe. And the idea is that you recite this in front of this assembled objects of refuge as witnesses, right? The Buddhas and their children.
Oh, yeah, that is one. What that they can do long money, and so
Geshe added this to the program, the Bodhisattva vows, initially because of the advice of His Holiness the Great 14th Dalai Lama, who said that whenever there is a gathering at the great monasteries or smaller gatherings, that on this day it is very important to receive or renew the Bodhisattva vows. So we have a lot to cover today, so we'll go through this quickly, but I see most of the people, you've received these before, so just imagine you're renewing these vows and repeat as best you can after Geshe. So then within the Bodhisattva vows, right, there are embedded several important points. There are 5 or 6 of these. And the first 3 components of this prayer that we recite, these are to purify the mind, to make it a suitable basis for receiving the vows. And the first of these is the common refuge, which we've meditated already. And the second is the confession of negativities. So it's very important to meditate on the purification of negativities, because the latencies of those negativities, these can be an obstacle to being able to receive or to being able to renew the bodhisattva vows. And then the third one is the practice of rejoicing. And rejoicing is included in these three preliminaries because jealousy is a very common affliction of all of us, and we want to dispel that, again, to create space within the mind. And then those three are followed by a main point, and this main point is to bring forth the uncommon Mahāyāna refuge. This is the increased basis for the vows. So the uncommon Mahāyāna refuge is one step. Following this, we have the aspiring bodhicitta, sometimes translated as the wishing bodhicitta with the promise, aspiring with the promise. The next verse refers to seeing all sentient beings as our invited guests. The idea about seeing them all as our invited guests is that they are the very nearest, closest, dearest people to us. So to see sentient beings like that. And then having seen them as our invited guests, this meditation on seeing them as all attractive, as close to us, on this basis, we develop the wish to promise to give our body, speech, and mind to their service. And in order to be able to fulfill that wish, we promise to engage in the stages of the Bodhisattva's practice. So the verse that you're repeating after Geshe, he said he just shared this brief summation just to give you an idea of the meaning of the verse as we recite it. Repeat after Geshe.
Dipa Tamche Soso Sha.
Dipa Tamche Soso Sha.
Doi Gela Ji Rong.
Doi Gela Ji Rong.
Sonji Shangju Yi Ji Zu.
Sangye Jiangshu Yi Sun.
Sonji Chitong Socho La.
Sangye Chitong Socho La.
Shangju Bado Da Sha Che.
Jiangshu Bado Da Jab Ji.
Roje Tena Radho She.
Rangjin Dena Rabjub Jir.
Rongete Yanjete Tashima Pazuba.
So this is a promise to achieve the welfare of oneself and also the welfare of others in the most complete, most perfect way.
Shoju Sena Sheba Jo.
Jiangshu Sema Cheba Ji.
Shoju Choge Sena Sheji Ni.
Jiangshu Chogi Sena Cheje Ni.
Senje Tongje Dagin Redon Ni.
Semchen Tamshi Dagi Dundu Nier.
Shoju Xianju Yigon Sheba Jo.
Jiangshu Cheshu Yon Cheba Ji.
Drola Bejo Sonjin Drova Shu.
Drola Penjir Sangye Droba Shu.
Ole Tombo Sonele Niba Yonga Jidenzeva Shu.
That is the first recitation. Following this, please now repeat after the Lama for the second recitation.
Genjo Sala Da Sha Che.
Gonjo Sumla Da Jab Ji.
Dipa Tongche Soso Sha.
Dipa Tamche Soso Sha.
Doi Gela Ji Rong.
Doi Gela Ji Rong.
Sonji Shangju Yi Ji Zu.
Sangye Jiangshu Yi Sun.
Sonji Chitong Socho La.
Sangye Chitong Socho La.
Shangju Bado Da Sha Che.
Jiangshu Bado Da Jab Ji.
Roje Tena Radho She.
Rangjin Dena Rabjub Jir.
Shangju Sena Sheba Jo.
Jiangshu Seni Cheba Ji.
Shangju Choge Sena Sheji Ni.
Jiangshu Chogi Sena Cheje Ni.
Senje Tongje Dagin Rendo Ni.
Semchen Tamshi Dagi Zhenzhu Nier.
Shangju Xianju Yigon Sheba Jo.
Jiangshu Cheshu Yon Cheba Ji.
Drola Bejo Sonjin Drova Shu.
Drola Penjir Sangye Droba Shu.
Le Nipa Sonele Samba Yonga Jidin Zene Le Sambi Talata, Domanga To Tony Ta,
So after the third recitation, which you will repeat after the Lama, then at the conclusion of this, you imagine if you have not received it, you have received the Bodhisattva vows. And if you have received them, but they have degenerated, you imagine that the vows are now restored. And for those who it is their first time, imagine that you are receiving those Bodhisattva vows and promising to engage in the practice just as those ordinary beings who are enlightened beings now have done. So if you have received the Bodhisattva vows before, but they have not degenerated because you have not given rise to irritation or anger, Geshe rejoices, and you should feel that these Bodhisattva vows are now perfected. Yeah, so he can't presume to be the judge of that, you know within yourself. Yeah. So now we are going to do the third and final recitation of that. Kunjo Sumla, Dachab
Dipa Tonche,
Dipa Tamshe,
Soso
Sha,
Doi Gela, Jie
Rong,
Sonji Shangju,
Sangye Jiangshu,
Yiji Zu,
Yigi Sung,
Sonji Chitong,
Sangye Chudong,
Socho La, Shangju Bada, Dasha
Dachab Ji,
Rongje Dana, Rada Shangju Sena, Sheba Shangju Choki, Sena, Xieji Ne, Senche Tongche, Dagi, Renda Nye, Shangju Xianchu, Yihong, Sheba Rola Pesha, Songjin Drova Sho. So now is a good time to make any prayers of aspiration that you have for those to be fulfilled. In order to continue our study and practice of the holy teachings, may we have a healthy body and sound mind so that we can best continue. May we be able to direct our mind to a state which is easily able to fulfill the wishes of others, to fulfill their welfare. So keeping these Bodhisattva vows, which our teacher, the Buddha, and the other holy beings also received, I will make a determination to do my very best not to allow them to degenerate. So then think through receiving or renewing these through this merit all of my negativities, obscurations, mistakes, and degenerated commitments from countless lifetimes in samsara until now, recollecting perhaps a recent transgression. Think that these are completely purified along with their latencies. So we'll pause there. So the benefit of these bodhisattva vows is such is that if we are able to maintain them and be mindful of them so that they do not degenerate, even without particular effort as we go about our daily activities, for example, walking, for example, eating, for example, working, and so forth, all of these become a source of continued merit. 메세 도자제도 가니 체와 조데레스 메세 도자제를 다 손노토니 가와드바이네 가와토 침부차기 가래 디도지
listen. And this is sort of the difference between these two levels of receiving the vows, right? If you decided to take it as an aspiration with the promise not to set aside bodhicitta, or if you took the engaging bodhisattva vows. It is said that if you make the aspiration with the promise, you accumulate merit whenever you recollect bodhicitta. But if you take the engaging bodhisattva vows, you continuously accumulate merit, even when not reflecting on bodhicitta. So now the lung, the oral transmission of the praise and prayer to noble Avalokiteshvara, bringing forth the rains of happiness and well-being. So this is on our website for those of you who are interested. So this is a very precious prayer composed by the 7th Dalai Lama.
Papa tuji chembola teji sowa ndepa pedi chambe shishawa yuso Namo ayalogo joraya shuje jawa ranjo shige dedonyo bate dawage dola chabe kendo chabe niji jaso tawasa tele chube te lozo shere zi shi no chabange boda cha kenje te ji ruchi ranja telando So then
there is this homage to Arya Lokeshvara, which is Avalokiteshvara at the beginning, and then there are praises to his qualities, particularly as the deity of compassion.
And Haba se tata che me chi lavande chuate baba te me chukon silega yama sibasana shawata da watenze bebe jima cho jo che che she la lo to de no macha jo no ba kon jo jiso shu ba te che no ge jo ko te ba ka de chi da da waten she me sho me sa jo ni do jo wan ji de jo jo tu mi ma ba tan je ni ma ba wa ba wa dong she dong yi se du ma se ro che ma ban zo ba ba che So the
part of this prayer where Geshe is leaving off is referring to the qualities of Avalokiteshvara, able to bring forth the wisdom that completely dispels ignorance, which is likened to the sun and to the moon.
So yi che zhe ji bi na zhuo zhe ji me zhe zhen zhuo dong de xie jia zhe chui bi su zhu me kuan zhe yin na ji me dong zhe lu ge wang ye jia bin ji ba la su ba ba shen dong niu ta ne su lu dong a jia yi ji ba ge che ji ge zhe da wa che ji ge zhe da wa zhui zhe lu ge ji ji nie zhong ne me la yi ba du ra de ba de be de ba chu la wang ba zhe xiao le ba xiao wo ji ba no ke ge do ran zhe la ba jia ye bi jia bi wu bo ye ba me ge ri zhe jie we la zhe sha ye chu zhe zhe mo le de zhe ga bi de ba ba ne me de ge zhe da de lu ye da ge zhe du wang zhe sha ye da so ge la ba de bi ji ba yi guo zu mi cong la so zhe de de bi jian no ji de gong wu xue ko lo bi man da dong ji sha jia su ji ra ba都找小东西东啊哇，自己下送用到的啦啦，对这个类的，别别生意这东西多那么的小东，今年拉索弄把他们说这些人个。研究作家当地来的那边走了说，抓小杀生给把电用推呢，这用嘛我们那看了这个就是说，一天家去他妈去带他们这个世界中最解决这把电呢，然后作用把别这。这作用你基本嘛也得查这里那么其他就等别多帮俺们那帮俺用着一点他们就只能用手不中说老多接受等别俺们用这些了呀这都就出来的别去了你话点这把切水谁那话论干了用到你把就这些就没这东他别一路那去了大我一到天中抓的那就认真的我嘛来着那个差别就这就三么就用 Te me jibe traba te da kan yon de nga me ge la ma de ko ba no da de yo xie wo yo da zhe le do na ba ge de sa son to zhu bi qi zhe ko lo ge da wa ti se多别家话跟着谁让你把他走别了面就比我学见了记得跟着了嘛这些我跟他说对你这个追我这这把做面几斤钟的不懂着我打工呢那就家族推荐工什么现在当然了当然说了这话题就绝对对你这咱们别如如嗦嗦了这话里中拉比个这话几话嘞是多少钱钱了
老手，kari？
现在是的ngarusul这话是我要是有了
Yeah.
这了拉比个这话几多用
So this is praising a quality of Arya Avalokiteshvara's compassion, which is normally the compassion or concern that we have for ourselves, the intensity of that. Arya Avalokiteshvara has that intensity of compassion for every single sentient being.
卡布真的而且拉说恰切不把大所以前面这当中我们这里注意些的咱们让我这把几句意思你话是公办的我出给大的这就要面了说走了说到跟他们没这些卡动没咱们这边前面可以跟人这些拉说就把一阵这大这边咱家那时候的这家去是我东下人给些注意呢我注意的别说的多瓦热水这么个节呀了咱这到这里离工他也ra哟这这他里没咋爸爸这里多就对吧这就给这个多的爸爸这边对到诺了是给的这差吧做些个做就为了这别产品的问题这边说就要往多接落多看用干嘛这些都看都么对了吧对现在干面的这呢你我给这么多这边的做我这都说那个把一家面了吧从别家别把的用么当用呢那面我这把公用把就是这了的也没当就一个些咱我这老板你就直接对这这才能才呢多了这多万你就没这的说公平那个我这的我做的用一些我就这的没多大完了就完的用地接东你别接那个的，就大概才有路的，就给去做些的，那么这边就等于把罗些，就往那个不他些，别么这么不，对不？当你接不，那么就往这个的一类，就是搞完年么接年不年，年把嘞就把到上着对到这对我讲做定的呢，推荐说给中的说。或者这一过一些的特别的说，我们就去些把这个这给这几个我这不那个那么这么多了吧？你去我到吧都没别来了吧？就这么多，就今年没给在这抓的那了你多你的多电脑中的了来别这这嘛了这面把弄到的可惜。到可惜今年谁说你把他们在那边我找到这把别多年在了。研究推到的这个咱把那实习下了吧的这些钱用心机了，过天节把小把东西就中面，你别来东这钱做这些出这点别这个的这个大家这算的那个不晓得，一推不那大些这说的说同学跟着什么给别人我等把东来东这边来了吧的，大多接着了东就那就可东搞我从别去这就找把妹妹。是把牛年的轮元年我的了，说的说他给大众听你这边逻辑这么没把东西了，说的你这的小娃他妈去了，的他到碰把些别他去把罗小多的弄到个的记者做动作我提的什么就到。罗真没有可以就个做街道学别电机没一天晚上就那个不给帮的如果提说真把天用的比这么弄到真是写的家伙除了写的自己就是说我他提起的我提了一个这
Right. So that concludes the transmission of the Bhakta praise of Arya Avalokiteshvara.
我他得做俺罗手机嘛了，他离着我用个这了，地图里嘛看着他都罗说他电视路呢了，等到但是在我都他年纪都西了呀，公平等着了，他不给
So then Geshe said that his plan is once we finish this side commentary, right, we have the main one of Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra and the side commentary of recognizing the mother, then he's going to begin the commentary of this Bhakta praise to Avalokiteshvara because it's really important to understand this as a way that we can recite this prayer and use it to improve upon our wisdom and compassion and overcome ignorance. And so then in terms of, we spoke a lot about the method side of the path, and then many of you may be familiar with a prayer of dedication that we often recite, which is at the end of the teaching. And the meaning of this prayer is something like, wherever the precious bodhicitta has not arisen, may it arise, and where it has arisen, may it not decline, but increase more and more. This dedication has embedded within it a summary of the 10 verses of the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra. So then we have the chapter on the benefits, the chapter of the confession of negativities. The third is the chapter on guarding the bodhicitta. And so those 3 chapters are connected with the part of this prayer that says, may the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise, or may it arise where it has not arisen. Zupa. So then the next chapters, which are on the mindfulness or recollection of bodhicitta, the introspection chapter, and the patience chapter, these are connected with the part of this prayer that says, may that bodhicitta which has arisen not decline. And so then this chapter on, sometimes it's translated as mindfulness. I think Batchelor translates it as conscientiousness. This is this part of the text.
This one?
Yep. Tamasum karire.
Yep.
And so the last 3 chapters are the chapters on effort, concentration, and wisdom. This is connected to the last part of this prayer that says, but increase more and more.
And
then the 10th chapter is not necessarily connected to this prayer, but it is a chapter of dedication. So Geshe said that when you first look at the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra, it's a very sophisticated text in 10 chapters. It may feel overwhelming, but if you remember these 10 sections and you connect it to this prayer as a way to remember it, it becomes a lot easier to think about. Yeah, and so then in terms of guarding introspection and so forth, whether we are doing this is something that we only know ourselves because it relates to the development of our own mind. Okay. And so our task really is, having understood these teachings of the text, to use them to improve our mind as much as possible. So there's only a few verses of this 4th chapter left, and so we are beginning on chapter 45 or 46, I believe, which is on page 16. So in terms of where we've been discussing, if you've been attending the previous classes, you know that the discussion of the text has been about recognizing our real enemy. And the discussion unfolded that the real enemy is not an external enemy. The real enemy is the afflictions which abide within our mind. And this also relates to a chapter within the Uttara Tantra Shastra by Maitreya, where it says very clearly that the Buddha stated that there is no sentient being that is our enemy. The only enemy is the afflictions that are within our mind. And so seeing sentient beings as close to us is very important. And in the Uttara Tantra Shastra, we appreciate that all sentient beings are close to us because they possess the Tathagata Garbha, or the Buddha nature, the potential for enlightenment. For this reason, they are exceptionally precious, not only when that particular sentient being is close to us, but also when they are not close to us. Verse 46, deluded disturbing conceptions or deluded afflictions, when forsaken by the eye of wisdom and dispelled from my mind, where will you go? Where will you dwell in order to be able to injure me again? But weak-minded, I have been reduced to making no effort. So these are not, Geshe said, scoldings, but they are verses that are designed to make us more courageous, more determined in our practice. Geshe says Dave likes the scoldy kind of stuff, so he thinks he probably likes this verse. Right. So then the deluded afflictions that are being identified here that need to be dispelled from our mind. One way of understanding that is the afflictions, but another mind is a mind that is not necessarily an affliction, but the Tibetan word is nyomchung. So nyomchung usually means humble, but in this way it means not resolved, not courageous. So it's critiquing that as well.
This one? Oh, that Nemo, Konyochu, and never me but it's a Narusu Murray, Roa Murray, Shira make it tiny Puntogres, Nevazo Togres.
Right. And so having understood that we possess these afflictions, we understand that we also possess the means to overcome that. And the means to overcome that is through bringing forth wisdom. So you can think, for example, when you look out in the early morning after a foggy night, when the sun is arising slowly, the fog gets cleared away to the point where you can see the landscape perfectly clearly. So in the same way, we develop our wisdom, which is like the sun, which clears away this foggy landscape, because through wisdom we understand that the afflictions have no backing in reason or logic, that the way that the afflictions grasp at things existing is not the way that they really are, and in this way we are able to overcome the afflictions with wisdom. Because the afflictions, including the root affliction of ignorance and all the branch afflictions, are mistaken mind, they have no reasoning behind them at all. Because they don't have a grounding in valid reason, they do not have a real power, right? They do not have a force of power. The positive mental qualities that we develop, wisdom, love, compassion, patience, and so forth, because these minds are unmistaken, because they are grounded in reason, they have the power of truth behind them. And because they have this power of truth, they can overcome any affliction.
디토를 찔래 그디네 콜레 그디네 코니 따따 데토 매에서 가르서 끼고면 같이 용기야.
And another thing, when the afflicted minds arise, the afflicted minds are not the true nature of our mind. They cover or obscure that nature. We know this because when an afflicted mind arises, we have a feeling of discomfort immediately. That tells us that's not who we really are.
가르서 솔론 저거는 둘로 할레비 쳇어봐. 마데와 쳔보치 개나 농소 개님은 좀 파자가 봐. 니네 진짜 대도 지바래 돼요.
So it's like, imagine that you don't prepare well for the day with how you dress. You wear something that's way too big, way too heavy for the weather. When you go outside, you want to remove it and get rid of it immediately. That's the sort of feeling that we should have about these afflictions.
Because
the afflictions have this quality of stain, and because the true nature of our mind is pure luminosity, they do not fit together naturally, and that's why we feel discomfort when we are afflicted. So also we understand that as long as our mind is tainted by the afflictions, we do have those moments of happiness. But that happiness that we experience is contaminated happiness, right? It is not a lasting, stable happiness. And that's why when we try to bring forth positive, wholesome qualities within our mind like love, compassion, patience, and equanimity, we start to get a taste for a happiness that is uncontaminated, for a happiness that is stable and wholesome, right? We experience that.
야, 더가로 단다 tunuwa.
Allez, j'ai trucré, Allez, listen.
Nyemon dine ta poge damen rabo tumbani rabo chi rasona. Nyemo kawan rosun din ros sa yom ko yino ya.
So when we bring forth this wisdom realizing emptiness, or this wisdom of selflessness, that means that that fog will be completely dispelled. And that's answering this question in the verse, where will you go? Where will you dwell again? It will never be able to come back.
다 론소도 nyemo menro kale nyemo menro gras. Sen me sun shulun ros ya ke yamane.
Right. So once the afflictions are defeated, and as we develop our wisdom, eventually we'll come to that point. When they're defeated, they can no longer come back, right? We no longer need to have that worry.
단다 바다 가로서 트리자 데데 아테 소소소 다치 담아데. 로제 달라 젠지 때모 메는 가로서 탈하된디.
But I have been weak-minded, I have been reduced to making no effort. So Geshe said this is answering the question, like, why are we wondering where those afflictions are going to go, or if they're going to come back? Because we have been weak-minded and we have not been able to bring forth the wisdom necessary to overcome them.
자대 체만 만두 덴비 또 만두 다 공비 또 지라테는 간소 하대야데 소소를 젠디면도 다 하den두.
So why do the afflictions still bother us if they are not grounded in reason, if they do not have a force of power? The afflictions continue to bother us merely because we have not brought forth the effort necessary to defeat them. So number 47 continues along this line of reasoning, verse 47. If these afflictions do not exist within the objects, the sense organs, between the two nor elsewhere, then where do they exist and how do they harm the world? They are like an illusion. Thus I should dispel within my heart and strive resolutely for wisdom. For no real reason, why should I suffer so much in hell?
다 나로서 하다 미야 강가 하고 그러와스 콘돈다 고칠래봐 이는 소소 끼워면 야야 강가 끼워면 봐서 토야 데스 코시 원 두아스.
So it's really clear when an affliction like anger arises within our mind. Immediately we're unhappy, and that's not the only problem. The problem is that we create an energy that makes those around us who are unhappy as well.
단딜 근데 갈라 침보대. 예, 로로소서 나이 날다와. 센지 셀다와.
Sengi semlatawa?
센지 셀다와.
Didonakare.
셀 치다와. 아제.
Right.
소소소소다와.
So we want to direct the attention to ourself. The eye should look at the eye. The mind should look at the mind.
다 되게 용기하래. 다 컨트롤 질래봐 이나. 세전다 지고 컨트롤 간디신데.
Right. And so when anger arises, what is that anger like? And from where is it arising? We ask that question.
컨트롤 때 여기 돌는데 온보 돌는데 아니 다 가와가완데
Is the anger within that object that we're interacting with? Is the anger somewhere within one of our sense consciousnesses or skandhas? We start to ask that.
다 던디자 지제봐 이나. 때는 오야 첨보지 컨트롤 때 저만노지.
Yeah. As we try to look for and pinpoint or pin down that anger, we'll be unable to find it. And when we become convinced of its lack of findability, that's when we will see that it is like an illusion.
다 고롱 던디지래. 다 고로가 여때는 여보다와 얘는 소마노지. 저거 주사 지조라야. 요코로 만든지 도지요.
So the nature of anger is something that is mistaken, and the way that anger appears in relation to an object, right? It does not exist in the way that it appears. It depends upon thinking that something is truly existent and findable when it is not. And so this verse is telling us that if we are able to bring forth a wisdom that penetrates that sees that this is not the way things really are, then we will be able to defeat anger. Verse 48, therefore, having thought about this well, I should try to put these precepts into practice, just as they have been explained. If the doctor's instructions were ignored, how will a patient in need of cure be healed by his medicines? So we have to follow the instructions of our doctor to get well. In the same way, if we follow the instructions of the king of doctors, our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, by engaging in the three trainings in meditation, concentration, and wisdom, we will definitely be able to heal the disease of the afflictions. So in this way, we have concluded the fourth chapter of the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra. Bachelor translates this as attending to the spirit of awakening. I would translate this as the heedfulness, or you could even say mindfulness chapter. So when we say heedfulness, Geshe said, we can understand mindfulness here, and we can apply mindfulness to different aspects of our being, right? We talk about a mindfulness of the mind and a mindfulness of the body, for example. And in these close applications of mindfulness, if we talk about close application, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the mind, these have kind of coarser cultivations, middling cultivations, and very subtle cultivations. So this chapter is really a heedfulness or a mindfulness of the mind. We're watching what's happening in the mind. And so Bakya, this Tibetan word which is translated as often translated as mindfulness, Geshe said the heedfulness aspect is you're kind of telling yourself, I need to be careful. I need to watch and be careful.
가르를 자자 세 가르세는 세 개월에 뇨마뇨. 하고서라와 오다 세 존재 심비 시에와 오다 던데를 뇨마뇨. 다 대자자 신의 때부터 가라와스.
So why do we need to be careful? We need to be careful about the direction our mind is going. Is it engaging with what is wholesome, with what is virtuous? We need to be careful with what our mind is dwelling upon. Is it dwelling upon the bodhisattva practices and so forth?
다 레근가 와슐로가 지로네 디라기.
So Geshe said that his idea now, because we had those special activities, so the session is a bit short, but just for auspiciousness, he wants to do the first verse of the 5th chapter.
다 뒤에 텔세는 뭔데 셔도 저서 파시 쪽에 녀래 차소 연구하러 왔어. 다 지메 녀래도 그 메다야 말 가서 갈소 솔로 연구하래스.
So another thing to mention in the context of the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra more generally is that all 6 of the paramitas or perfections are contained within this text, but they don't necessarily each have a chapter named after them. So for example, generosity appears throughout the text.
다 시주스한테 또 추출래고 또라고 지. 아 소로 또 저거야래스.
And so this chapter 5, which is given as guarding alertness or guarding introspection by Bachelor, Geshe said this is mainly ethics, right? So when we talk about the paramitas, the paramita of ethics or morality, that's what this is talking about. And then finally, when we come to the next chapter, it's actually called patience. So we have the names we normally associate with the paramitas. Concentration is called concentration. Wisdom is called wisdom. Joyous effort is called effort. So this text has a complete presentation of these 6 paramitas or perfections. So, guarding alertness, verse 1, those who wish to guard their practice should very attentively guard their minds, for those who do not guard their minds will be unable to guard their practice. So all of the faults depend upon the mind. Whether our practice comes out well or not depends upon the mind. Therefore, if we are able to guard our mind, we will be able to guard every practice. So when we talk about the agent or the doer, the main agent for us is the mind, which means when we guard the mind, we are able to guard the other facets of our being as well. And because the mind is precious, if we are able to engage our mind with the higher trainings in ethics, concentration, and wisdom, then we will experience an improvement and an improvement. So Geshe would like to end it here. So we will do a dedication of the merits on this holy day of Saga Dawa. And for those folks of you who are at home, after we dedicate, if you need to get on with your day, please do. But we will also have an opportunity for question and answer. So stick around if you are interested.
Jangjo semjo rinpoche maje panam jejur chi chewa nyamba meba yang gone gondu bewa sho 29 tongni tawa rinpoche maje panam jejur chi chewa nyamba meba yang gone gondu bewa Jambe bao jidar kiamba dan kundu zambo deon de jende Deda gunge jesu dalo jir gewa dida tangje radungo Duzu shebe gewa tangje ge Ngowa gangla chodu ngaba de Dagi gewe tsawa diga jang Zambo jeje radungo wagi Gangri rawe gowe shinkanze Pendan dewa malu jungwe ne Chenre ziwan tenze jazo ye Shape site bardu tenjoro
So we shall end it there.
로주시 뇰레신네라 겨와서 아야레 오치소게 레가친네라다 겨와서 아야레 오단다 문다가 토니샤와 야레 와스테 강가루로서 드리야포 응오야포서 타나 오치세 야레.
So it's really good to dedicate our merits, and Geshe said not just the merits for our study and our practice, but the merits for all of the virtuous things that we do. For example, the things to help the center, charitable activities, and so forth. There's really a reason why we need to think about and rejoice in these. Yeah, so we'll pause there, and we welcome questions. B, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Geshe. Hi, Venerable.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Happy Saga Dawa.
I've been up since 4 a.m.
Good for you. That's very virtuous.
That's
I was
the
up
power-
early, but not that early. That's
That's
nice.
the power of Zoom.
Yeah, the power of Zoom. Yeah. That's really excellent. This is a good day to do that.
The Nyingma and the Kakyupa have always said that we are already Buddha. We already have the omniscient mind, but it is an omniscient mind that has obscuration. Now, to me, that is a contradiction, a statement of contradiction.
Yeah.
But it suddenly occurred to me as Geshe was explaining about how our mind that has affliction, it does not contaminate the nature of our mind, which is pure. I suddenly saw a parallel between the two. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, between the two views. Yeah.
To say that the nature of our ordinary mind is always pure, is not contaminated by an affliction, versus saying that I already have the omniscient mind, and so on.
Yes. No, I will. I'll share this with Geshe B, and we'll see what he thinks. Namgyung nganso gitawa dang kaji ningma gitawa nganso ngmane sange res samso chik yes roa. Ane di kola mo dokpa mambo saswa roa. Di ngene nesu dang gyawa res. Ine dering gen di junju jodu roa. Dene nganso di sem gi ngo di yores roa. Nyumong dinso yores. Ine konso sem gi rangjen mares roa. Konso sem di dapochik begires. Dinso yong pe kapula dene sem tes debo mepa chagires. Chetsang sem gi rangjen mares. Di samlo tangna dene namken seria di yopayos. Sange seria di yopayos. Roa dene chichena nganso gi tawa dang kaji ningma gi tawa di gewa yingo mares gidu.
미민가 야 장가와 이거 말해서나 미 다들 나오나 왔어. 야 걸어서 그게 있어 단단히 다 있어 가는 아주 대로서 요 말에 된로야 지체 차소 니바 차소 요 알아서 야야.
So Geshe said that you're right that they're not necessarily contradictory in terms of what we have, which is the nature of the mind. The difference is contextual, right? In one school they're saying we're already Buddha, we have Buddha from the beginning, right? So that's one way of thinking. And the other way, they're saying, we're not Buddha yet, but we have the potential of Buddha from the beginning, right? So it's like two different ways of talking about it. But whether you say that it's already Buddha or it's the potential of the Buddha, the thing that you're talking about, right? That potential, it's the same thing, right? It's the same potential.
Okay. Now, the objection to saying that we already have become a Buddha, for me, there are two objections.
Right.
One is that by very definition, an omniscient mind is a mind without obscuration.
No obscurations,
so one
yes.
therefore cannot say an omniscient mind with obscuration.
I'm going to give this reasoning to him first, okay, B? And then we'll come to reasoning number 2. Is that okay? Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah. Dene ko dopa sasa tsochik rwa dene sange yana namkendi yeres rwa. Namken sena dripa mepegi sem res rwa. Nganso sem dripa yutsang nganso namken yomares. Nganso namken metsang sange mares.
야 세계 요스 라마 정가 베세네 대한테 가서 진짜 또 야 뒤도는 거기 알았어.
Lama Tsongkhapa would agree with you, and in fact, this is the crux of his argument. This is the crux of his argument. Yeah.
단단한 손지 있으나 말이 봐도 강감해 그거도. 아니 너 드리지 놀러 요나다 다 가르쳐. 다 예수도 강갈지 봐요 알아. 스텝해도 싫어. 문제 와스.
Because if we say that we are a Buddha, necessarily we must be parted from ignorance. Because if we are not, it is not possible to have omniscience. Ngensong Karyalson? But we, and even those beings in the lower realms, all share having that ignorance, right? Having the obscuration of ignorance. Sorry. So there's a lot of people who say that they're uncomfortable saying that we're Buddha from now, or that the Buddha's already there, because like you pointed to, that would necessarily imply that we're omniscient, right? But we're clearly not. We're clearly not. So that's the problem. Yeah. But if you use one of the similes from the Uttara Tantra Shastra about the jewel that is covered with the rags, that actually supports their argument in some ways. Yeah. Because a diamond is still a diamond, whether it's under the rags or whether we've taken out the diamond, polished it, and placed it on our mantle, right? The fact that it is a diamond hasn't changed. It's still a diamond, right? So Geshe said that if you wanted to make the argument that we're Buddha from the beginning, those passages from Uttara Tantra Shastra would be quite supportive, right?
Well, in my opinion, I'm sorry, Geshe was talking.
Geshe thinks that the context of how it's understood is not as important as the main element, and the main element is that we all possess that potential. He feels that's the most important thing. Go ahead, B, you want to say something? Ale, sorry, he's going to say one more thing and I'll come back to you. Yeah. So Geshe-la's way to understand these different perspectives is that lamas express differing focuses. Is foci even a word? I don't even know if that is that different foci? Thank you. Foci. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I thought so. So different foci, but also different arguments, because that helps us sharpen our wisdom. So Geshe-la was mentioning that there was Jetsunpa Dang. So he was mentioning that there was a teacher whose student had written some debate texts, and the debate text just mirrored the teacher's argument. And he said, that's not going to be beneficial for people. Argue a reasoning that is different from mine. So some of the textbooks have different views. So if you look at the textbooks of the J College of Sera and the Loseling College of Drepung, they argue that a bodhisattva who is in meditative equipoise upon emptiness, that his or her mind is still imbued by bodhicitta. Other colleges of the Gelug monasteries disagree with that. They argue against that. And that's kind of a significant difference, but it's not the only difference that you find in these philosophical texts. There are many such differences. So why would they have done this? Because they want the students to argue. They want the students to debate so that they can refine their wisdom. Right? That's why you see these contradictions sometimes. You have the same mountain, but some people are going to want to take a different path to the top of that mountain. People need different paths. And so that's one of the reasons you see these seeming contradictions.
야, 로소소들 지설지 된데 요아레스 요도요.
Yeah, and these are smart people, so their reasonings are well thought out usually, right?
다들이서는 돈이 다
Yeah.
개발했어.
So Geshe said that's a skillful way to kind of think about the contradictions so that we can be more comfortable with them. Sorry, B, you wanted to say something else. Go ahead.
That wasn't the crux of my question.
Yeah, I know.
Did a very elegant.
But he's trying to get you to think about this skillfully. But go ahead.
So I suddenly realized that I can apply all that logic that Geshe just mentioned to our convention, to talking about ordinary mind.
Yeah.
The mind of sentient being, by nature pure, and it is not contaminated by the adventitious stain. That whole statement,
Yeah.
I think, is applicable to the debate about whether or not we already have omniscient mind. Because,
Whether you have the omniscient mind. Yeah. Yeah.
because if our mind is by nature pure, for one thing, there's no cause and condition to that pure mind. And the secondly, mind is not like a diamond, physical thing that can be covered. Once you know something, you cannot unknow it.
Right.
So by nature pure, so to say that the stain exists beginninglessly, to say that the stain exists beginninglessly, and to say that our mind is by nature pure, I think those two statements are contradictory.
I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay. Let me try to convey this to Geshe. Dene nganso sem rangjingi nampar dakpa res, drima loburwa res, drima nganso sem gi nanglola yoma res. Okay, like di kelensa res. Di kelengere duas roa. Tambo ne Jima me tambo ne roa semgi rangshin dendre chik yeres ininganso yang tambo ne jima dapo chik yeres karinse nganso namken metsang nganso tambo ne jima yeres di gelwa dapo chik chagire duas karinse na sem roa rigba yeres roa öze yeres roa
야, 매 대든 가와 차고 말아. 코로 때려서 이나요. 실로로
chilo.
실로로 깎이대. 뭐는 뉴스 지발했어.
So Geshe said you have to think of it. It seems contradictory, but it's not, because one is the thing which is obscured, which is the potential, the nature of our mind's potential, which is pure from the beginning, and the other is the obscured, which is coming with it, which is covering it, which has also been there from the beginning. So if you think of them not as the same thing, but as two things, it's not a contradiction.
But when we say
세 로지 여보 연바대원 도마면 돼. 세 깎이게 꽈대기게 저마텔라요 도마면 돼.
So let's just start with the beginning point, right? So from the beginning point, right, there has always been this ultimate nature of the mind, which is perfectly pure, what we can call the potential or the Tathagata Garbha. Also, without beginning, are the defilements or the stains which have been obscuring this mind and traveling with it. They've both been there.
로지 집바 말해 되네. 이나요 다 가디나 다 도모는 돼.
So the stains are not the nature of the mind. They cover it, but they've been with that mind for all those previous times as well. So they are traveling companions.
메테도 요초로 와서 빼나 야 노부지나요. 너저 팔론다 watch 개년을 라요나.
Yeah.
로자닐 빼다 로 돈보네 로 자파트 코타가로 대자와 이리 집바로 왔어.
So let's go back to the jewel example from the Uttara Tantra Shastra, which I think you cited as well, B. Like, you can have the diamond that's there from the beginning, but the rag that's covering it can be there from the beginning too. And if the rag and the diamond are traveling together, you still have this issue of the obscuration and the obscured, right?
지로지 여보를 지로지 뒤자래 되네 이나요.
Yeah.
너무 때라 패도시 용금만 됐어.
One is a positive thing. One is by its nature positive, right? This potential. One is by its nature not positive, obscuring. And because that obscuring thing has been traveling with it, we can't benefit from the potential of that which has been there all along.
I didn't get to say this just now.
And this is going to take a while. Go ahead. Yeah.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
the example of the golden Buddha statue and the rack or the diamond or the rack,
Yeah.
it is not a sample that applicable to mind,
It's not applicable to mind, you don't
but to
think?
consciousness.
To consciousness. Why do you say that?
For example, if I say A is a mind that by nature knows what an elephant is.
Mm-hmm.
Example.
Right.
And then I say that this mind is being obscure to not know what an elephant is.
Okay. Right.
So
Okay.
if a
Yeah.
mind by nature know what an elephant is, it can never be obscure to not know what an elephant is, right?
Yes, I mean I agree. That makes sense. I think it's kind of apples and oranges, but I it's an interesting line of reasoning. Let me see what Geshe says. Let's start there and see how it unfolds. Nganso perna nganso sengi rangjin dejin chepe rik chigyere roa. Di dang yamdu re dabo chigyere roa. Then nganso pe den so roa di metok nanglola gi kundra di dabo dang dit so roa. Yine di rigba dang chatsama hako tubya gi rigdi roa. Dene pe chik jabna nganso Lampochen, elephant cheek, roa. Lampochen hama koya gisem cheek, Lampochen tomanyong marig padabo cheek yere, roa. Lampochen hakoya gisem cheek yere. Lampochen hakoya gisem cheek yere. Lampochen hamikoya gisem dripadi betu gilmares. Kaninsena Lampochen tongsares. Then gewa dabo chagire to us.
For example, may I just add one
세
more?
코로 여버렸더니 세 코로 또 많이 또 매와스.
The mind is good, but the mind hasn't yet realized its own emptiness, would be his answer to that.
하고서
Yeah.
세
Well,
코로 로지 여버렸더니 이는 그 돈이 또 여자게 또 머리 나게 요마라. 또 연어 그랬대 버렸어.
Your argument would hold weight if the mind had cognized its emptiness from the beginning. Then absolutely your argument is correct.
또 머리요. 또 많이 또 머리 또 요 세나 그랬더니 요라디 요.
But that's not the case, right? Like the mind hasn't realized its own emptiness from the beginning. It hasn't given rise to bodhicitta from the beginning. It's just a potentiality here.
더는 가와티 다도 용 그랬어.
But if you were to make the argument that it's realized its own emptiness, be absolutely you're correct. That would be a
세
contradiction.
코로 알레 개와 요 말했어.
Yeah. And also remember, he said the tricky thing too is the context of how we talk about the mind is not so cut and clear, right? Gonda, karelaso?
세 코로 알레 개와 요 말아 와서
Yeah.
이세 류마테게 세지레스.
Remember, we talk about these minds' quality, but out of wholesome, unwholesome, and neutral, which of those three do we group the mind in? Neutral, right?
그래서 요 답이 세지레스.
Yeah. So if it's neutral, then it's like, okay, there's something a little bit we need to improve here.
so
그래서 요라디 요
therefore,
말했어. 다다.
So he thinks that's something to think about if your mind, yeah, like if you see a contradiction there, that's something to think about.
so when we say that mind is by nature pure, what we are really saying is that mind is empty of inherent existence by
Then
nature.
sem gi rangshin dakpas labna sem rangi ngune drupa mare samlo tangna digiribes.
말해 대니 소모도 요레스. 세 로지 답아서 점마델니 요레스.
Right.
로브치 점마도
Right.
로지 점마세니.
Right. So Geshe said when we talk about the mind being pure from the beginning, if we talk about purity, we want to think about stains, right? And when we can talk about two types of stains, kandesre?
로지 점마, 로지 점마.
Right. Ane loburgi drima.
로브치 점마니.
We can talk about natural stains and adventitious stains, rangjingi drima and loburgi drima. Natural stains and adventitious stains, yeah?
로지 점마. 세 이너레 나이 이너레 또고 요 말했어 뭐네.
So natural stains, whether we talk about the self, whether we talk about the minds, they do not possess natural stains, right? They do not possess natural stains.
로브치 점마 자요 말했어. 이나요 로브치 점마 로지를 요 말했어.
Jayo marisana?
로브치 점마 매와서 요 말아왔다 뭐.
Right.
자세리 매와서 요.
Right. So the adventitious stains, adventitious means they can be removed. They've been with us from the beginning, but they can be removed. Because they can be removed, they are not the mind's nature.
그래서 다 이나요. 이나요. 자요 말에 되는 이나 녀무 코로 로지 세 코로 로지라 녀모도 요 말에.
Right. So they are adventitious. They have been traveling with the mind, but they are not within the mind. So that's one reason that we say that mind is pure from the beginning. I think B, you mentioned the emptiness of the mind as well. Sam arranging le drupa gi thombani di digim se ni paredes.
Pena control yena ki rojila nyemo shuide yo.
Right.
Rojila nyemo shuide yo. Koro rojila nyemo yo.
Yeah. So if we speak of something like anger, right? Anger is by its nature afflicted, right? So it is afflicted by its very nature. That's not the case with the mind. Yeah, you can say like that for ignorance as well. Right. But the mind is not afflicted by its nature in the same way that anger and ignorance are. So that's why the nature of the mind is pure luminosity.
That is
Well, really we are talking about an angry mind, right? So an angry mind is by nature afflicted. But an angry mind also has the natural purity.
Kontro tsabogi semdi yang arrangingi dakpachik yeres. Nganso lung lampe kaplula. It doesn't possess that anger as a natural stain. That's the point. The anger arises within the mind, but it is adventitious. It's never a natural stain.
So it seems to me that when we say a mind is by nature pure, we are really actually referring to that the mind is by nature empty.
Yes. Sem gi rangshin dagpares labna, sem gi rangshin tompares dunchik dabo chagire duas. And so sem gi dagpa labna tompani lamsang hako giresa. That is absolutely the main thing. Yes. But we can also understand behind that, right? Behind the fact that the mind is empty of inherent existence, we can also understand behind that any of the stains are adventitious. Geshe said you're absolutely correct, but you have to bring in the fact that the defilements are adventitious because anger is empty of inherent existence as well, but it's not pure, right? That's why these two have to come together.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. No, that was a really cool conversation. So thank you for the question. Yeah, it was interesting. And Dave has, I think there's some other questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's something on social media, but I'd like to say, when similar to what the conversation is, thank you. So the question or to confirm, when the Buddha realizes the Buddha's own nature, he doesn't realize anything. Because the potential is emptiness. What the Buddha realizes is that absence. So there's no thing there that's pure.
Yeah. Sange seria di rwa ko tokpa chik kierna ko chik tokgires lab tu gyomares karin sena ko semgi tompani togire duas sengi tompani chikyang mepas rwa dene tokpa chegos tokpa mes dabochik drogire duas. Yeah. Sange gi tokpa dirwa ko chik togores labya yomare karin sena mepa chik togires sem rangjing gi drupa mepa chik togire duas ko samotan dire
mepa to togirwas ta yinayo ani karsekar duvanika meping gude toyore noche toyore.
Geshe said it's tricky because you're realizing the nature of the mind, which means that you're realizing an absence, yet from that absence being realized, true paths are realized, true cessations are realized, and enlightenment is realized. Yeah. And that's the paradox of the Buddha, right? Because the Buddha has realized the emptiness of their own mind, but the result of that is not a negative state. The result of that is being able to be in equipoise and simultaneously help sentient beings exactly wherever they need to be helped. So the Buddha is beyond conceptual thought of thinking, okay, this is what I need to do to help this sentient being. This is what this sentient being's affinity or capacity is, so I'm going to do that. This is the Dharma I'm going to speak to this particular audience. All of this happens without conceptual thought. It just flows, kind of, it just flows naturally. Yeah. So it's not only emptiness. There's the positive aspects of that as well, right? Yes, correct. Yeah.
So
right. So the reason that the Bodhisattvas cannot help as effectively as the Buddhas can is mainly because they still have to rely on conceptual thought to some degree to benefit those beings. And why is that? They've many of the Bodhisattvas, right, the Arya Bodhisattvas, they've defeated the afflictions, but the latency or the imprint left behind by the afflictions are still there. So they haven't yet reached that full potential. But there's no afflictions within the mind, right? Just that latency covering the mind for those later stage bodhisattvas. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a question from Jeff.
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think it makes. So there's two parts to it. The first one relates to the conversation about. Okay. So Jeff on social media is asking two questions, or the first one is a comment. If one isn't already a Buddha, one could not become one, as we can't change our nature. Is this not so?
Yeah, Jeff is very passionate of this other view, so this is good because we get that debate happening that we can all sharpen our wisdom. So if one is not already a Buddha, can you read it to me again, Dave?
Yeah. If one isn't already a Buddha, one could not become one, as we can't change our nature. Is that not so?
Tambone sange mares, sange chayo mares, karin sena nganso rangjindi girotang tugyo mares, di marebes.
Kandes.
Nganso misuyana, nganso tambone sange yingores, karin sena nganso gi rangjindi gyurwa tang tugyo mares, rwa nganso rangjindi gyurwa tang tugi metsang, nganso tambone sange mares sange chayo mares. We can change our nature. We can't change our nature in the ultimate aspect, which is the emptiness, right? We can't change that. But we can change the nature of our activities of body, speech, and mind. We can change our way of thinking. We can even change aspects of our consciousness. All of these things can be changed, right? If you say that we can't change our ultimate or final nature, that's true. Because our ultimate or final nature is our emptiness of inherent existence. But just because we can't change our ultimate nature, because we can't change the emptiness of our mind, that doesn't mean we can't change our mind. That doesn't exclude that. They're not exclusive. Yeah. I want to get to the second part of his question, Emily. I'll come to you. I'll see you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I think it's unrelated, but
oh, is it unrelated? That we can. Oh, yeah. Okay.
With Geshe's comments about conceptuality.
Right.
So Jeff is asking. So now he's responding to.
Okay, maybe we'll go to Emily first, and we'll come back to Jeff. Give him a chance to write his question. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Emily. Go ahead. Yeah.
Really, it's just I had thought that changing the people that you're with is also part of changing
your mind.
Yeah.
Nanso nyamdu yupa. So the question is changing the people that you're spending time with also not part of changing the mind? Nanso namgyun tutsu kya mi denso sem gyurwa tangyagi chedin nanso namgyun tuyagi mi gyurwa tango marebes. Didawochi.
말해 다 먼저 와도서나 야 먼저 와도서 세ஞ்ச 와도 하지 말아 왔어 야 덴버레스
Yeah, 하고선.
샤왕 년바된 저 와도
Yeah.
봐 오늘 다 샤와 저는 요하기 좋은 거야 다 데레스 와도서나
It's not just spending time, but more who we are influenced by, right? So we don't want to be influenced by people who are engaged in what is unwholesome or non-virtuous, because that hinders our development of the mind. So yes, in this way, right, avoiding unwholesome interactions can be a way to transform our mind. Absolutely.
Like choosing to be here
Yeah.
is, to me, changing my mind.
Nganso di yongya danka chena dene sem gyurwa drogo gires karin sen nganso chawa jendak chik pamgire.
덴버레
Yes, correct. You can say like that. Yeah. Thanks, Emily.
야 나도 자갈에 이나 다 셔도 다 돈 못해서 녀다 사와 이나 갈래 여보 차서나 뭐데 로진 좋아 여보 너도 왔어
Yeah.
로진 대표셔도
Yeah.
왔어
So in the monastery, they say that, that person's nature is changing if they are hanging out with the right people, if their mind is more subdued and so forth. Well, they'll say that person's nature has really changed. So Geshe was just singing that. I think this is connected maybe with Jeff's question about
가디나
nature.
녀다 사와 집아데 뭐데 로진 좋아하는 셔는 뭐 왔어
If he's always hanging out with like the and it is a he, right, because it's a monastery. So if he's always hanging out with like if negative people, they'll say, his nature isn't changing, right, because you're going to be influenced by those negative people.
야 대가래 와도서를 다 라바 뭐 리라보 뭐야
Yeah. So when we talk about changing the nature, this can be understood on the course level quite easily, right, depending on how we understand that word nature.
와야 리서로 와
Yeah. So Geshe
당아지라죠 다노 가슴 마치 있는 라사를 오사바이나
wants to just share one thing.
저와면 왔어
Yes, true. There was another question, Dave, wasn't there? Dave was asking. Geshe was asking.
Just from Jeff. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So there's still two things going on here with Jeff, right? So he's responding to Geshe's example of
Yep.
things in the mind, or things that do change.
Yeah.
Jeff is saying to make the question. So he's saying that changes in nature, those aren't changes in nature; they're changes of expression.
Di rangjin gyurya mares, rangjin gi trupa di gyurares. Now we're really into semantics. I think, it's just different ways of talking about it.
로지 접아데 저와도야 만두스
Rangjin gi drupa. Geshe says that, so that means then that the nature obscurations can't be abandoned because they're nature, by that logic and reasoning.
맨 루그라 인 루그라 소야 만두 왔어
Right?
치바레스
Jibares. Yeah. Then it's like a rabbit's horn argument, Geshe said. Yeah.
Okay, so Jeff's other question was.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time.
I know it's hard to follow all the comments sometimes. No worries.
그래서 기타와가 봤도 시아로 가지나
Geshe said he has a feeling that Jeff's next question is going to be tricky.
How does developing conceptual mind lead to wisdom? Or how does fixation on namtak lead to shera?
No, Jeff has been trying to convince me of this for years because he thinks it's beyond conception, right? Nganso tokpa latene sherab kandes yong tubgires. Tokpa mesem. Read me the question again just to make sure I get the nuances.
How does developing conceptual mind lead to wisdom?
How does developing conceptual mind lead to wisdom is the question. Yeah. Nganso tokpa peshatangne sherab kandes yongires.
야, 다 되돌리라 왔어. 빼난디 돌아. 리지가요나. 하고서로. 동복고 두그레 리자자 지오는 메도데. 또 두그레스. 미가다나.
So let's say that you're looking at this plant that's sitting in front of Geshe. And when you're first looking at the plant, you can't see it clearly because there is like a very thin cloth or a piece of plastic in front of it. So you get the general idea of the plant that's there, but you can't yet see it clearly. So our mind's emptiness, and Geshe, we're using an outer object as an example, right? But we're really talking about something that's internal. So our mind's emptiness, as we kind of get more familiar, we might get a general sort of sense of it, but it's still obscured, right? We're not able to cognize it completely. Yeah, there's an appearance. The appearance of emptiness is covering that. The mind's appearance is covering that emptiness. Right. So, The first step is to get the tsema, the pramana, the valid cognition of emptiness. And that's conceptual, right? That's conceptual.
다 기용조 고자 그러와스 기용조 고자 냐마치 고자 냐마니 고자 다 디세 코로 담만다레 다야요 아레스.
So you get that conceptual understanding, which is a pramana, because pramanas are conceptual. And then, based upon that understanding, you contemplate and meditate, and you are able to apprehend the emptiness more and more clearly.
다 노아테라 다 디필레고 건데와지 아레스. 바샤 드리서나 노아테 좀와서야 주로 파스요서 아레스.
Also, that obscuring sort of cloth or sheet of plastic that is there, not only is it connected with not having developed a valid cognition, it's also connected with negativities and obscurations. So we meditate, right, analytically, we come to that pramana, and at the same time we confess and purify negativities. And slowly that cloth gets lifted.
다 냐마 띠바가 노지레 칼레 파 노아테 다 고자 그러와.
So it's not sudden. It is a gradual engagement and thinking which is parting the clouds from the sun. Yeah. So Geshe said that's how he thinks about it. He thinks like you see the sun on a cloudy day, you know the sun is there, but first a breeze has to clear those clouds before you see it. So then, once we have this pramana, it's like that sun, which still has some clouds in front of it. So we meditate. When we get that direct realization of emptiness, the clouds have been completely cleared away, and the sun is appreciated in all its infinite brilliance. That doesn't mean that conceptual thought isn't there. It just means that we can see the sun fully. Yeah. Right. So then when we have the full apprehension of that sun, which is like emptiness, the full realization is completely clarified. At that moment, it is beyond conceptual thought. But without the conceptual thought, we don't have the bridge to get to that point. In fact, Geshe said better than the sun is to think about it as the moon. Think about the new moon gradually waxing and waxing and waxing and waxing till a day such as today where the moon is completely full. Yeah, hagosan. Nganso mangadi togeres. So Geshe would take objection to seeing conceptual thought as an object of abandonment, like you would see afflictions as the object of abandonment. He does not agree with that view. I don't think he's like that. Yeah. Because through identifying correct conceptions and building on those conceptions, that can actually take us to realization. It doesn't need to be abandoned. Yeah. So conceptions aren't the final thing, but they're really beneficial for getting us there. So the final realization, the direct one, is beyond conception, but we need conceptual thought to get there. I don't think he's going to like that at all. Conceptions are one of the main things that we need to cultivate as Buddhist practitioners because they lead to realization. Yeah. It's just a different way of thinking about it. Yeah. But Geshe also admits to not maybe understanding Jeff's complete how he understands the word nature, right? Because that can also be understood differently. So it's they've had a lot of conversations in person around this as well. So this is a well-established dialogue we've been having. Yeah. So Geshe said now that he said that he thought Jeff's question was the last question, but he sees more hands. So are there more questions? I think Carol has a question. Go ahead, Carol.
I'll read it out, okay?
Yeah.
The Gallogs say that we need to think and feel that we are already Buddhas when Tantra is practiced, though.
Right.
Other traditions seem to be using some aspects of Tantra or the Tantric method in their basic practices, perhaps then.
Yeah, good point. Yes, let us see what Geshe says about that. Geluk sanga kaplayina, lagi nejor nyamlen chegin, nga ngune sangye yins inji minji samlo chik tango gire duas, nganso sangye mares ine sangye yin inji minji samlo tango gire duas, di dabo chik samlo tangne dene, ningma kaji dang chuluk jendak den so chichena konso samlo tang tang ginangla, ngak simpegi samlo tang tang chik yeres.
Mimi ta tedo ya demores ndabo was. Ta ina kozo tombone yo zala was. Nganzo ta poke mo ji zone la.
Ale lai nejor kapla ngoma di drupa yin sang di yins dabo chik samlo.
Yeah, ne mo ji jena zo yo was.
So Geshe said that that's actually a really good point, and it makes sense that there is an element of Tantra in those explanations. But he would say that in the context of deity yoga, really believing that we're a Buddha, although we haven't, the difference of that with believing that we're a Buddha from the beginning is we still, when we're doing the deity yoga, think we are arising because we have accumulated the two collections and because all of these steps are completing. So you're not imagining that the steps aren't there, you're just imagining that they haven't been complete, that they've already been completed. But he thinks that your point about Tantra infusing those views is a good one. Yeah. Because that is true, you're taking the end result and thinking it's achieved right from now, right? The element of that is a very tantric way of thinking, so that makes sense. Yeah. But a word of warning about deity yoga. If we don't train in emptiness along with deity yoga, the divine pride in the absence of emptiness can actually become another mistaken appearance or conception. So we can get thrown off track. So without emptiness as part of the picture, just divine pride in and of itself, it's just a very, very fancy type of self-grasping. So we have to be careful. Yeah. Thanks, Carol. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So is Carol's question the last? I don't see any other hands. All right.
I just want to
yeah.
This is also why the yoga carrier system is useful, because it's projecting a...
Sem sampa in the young pentokia res karinchana chatsama semla tende yongi. Yes, correct. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and to everybody at home. Thank you for choosing to spend Saga Dawa with us. Oh, sorry, Geshe said one more thing. He said maybe you've heard this before, but he feels it's important to share. So just bear with him for a moment. Yeah. So Lama Tsongkhapa argues that the two truths are in one nature. He argues that emptiness and dependent arising are of one nature. So Geshe would like to share an example with you to understand this point more easily. That paper has a front side and a back side, but when you hold up the paper like that, you don't define between those two sides. You just see the paper from that view, you just see the paper. Yeah. So the two truths, you can't say one is more than the other. You can't say one is present without the other. They are always coming together, two truths. They are always coming together, emptiness and dependent arising. To have an appreciation of the two truths during one instance of mind, to have an appreciation of emptiness and dependent arising in one instance of the mind, that's more difficult, right? That's something that we work towards, but that is quite a high level realization. So that's why we say they are one nature, right? Dire.
소소 빈봉 오지 이사 대우 배자 주야래서.
Right. And also, Geshe said a similar example is given for the self and the skandhas are of one nature. Some people say,
세도 세고 뚱바니 오지 바이.
the mind and the mind's emptiness are of one
고시
nature.
가라와서 소소부터 봐. 소소 한번 거기. 대만이 오지 봐.
Right. The two truths are of one nature. So something to think about. Yeah.
다때 갈래갈래 같이 보이.
Yeah. So slowly, he'll come to more discussion of that. Don't need to get it all right away, but just something to think about. So thank you very much. We shall end there. And to everybody at home, thanks so much for joining us. Happy Saga Dawa. Enjoy the rest of the special day. See you next time. Happy Saga Dawa from Geshe. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye. Thank you.
Did he say at the very end, the self and the aggregates are one nature? Venerable Ketu. Was that what he said?
The mind and the mind's emptiness, I think he said.
Yeah, and then he also said the self and aggregate.